Hi everyone. Today I'm doing a tutorial on different pelvic positions that you're going to hear cued in any Pilates class that you would take, whether it's a mat class or an equipment class. This is also good if you're a yoga practitioner. You need to know these cues and what they mean so that you can set yourself up for success. We're going to be talking about a posterior pelvic tilt, an anterior pelvic tilt, and neutral pelvis. Now, I refer to a posterior pelvic tilt as a tuck or sometimes a tucky butt. And then the anterior pelvic tilt, I refer to as simply a tilt. So in my studio, I use the word tuck and tilt to cue those two different positionings, but then I would say neutral for the neutral pelvis. And I'm going to step this out for you and show you what I mean when we're talking about this. The easiest way to illustrate this is to get on my back, knees bent, so I have a nice solid, somewhat solid surface underneath me. You could do this on a yoga mat if you want to do this with me. You could just do this on a floor, but I want something that feels fairly firm underneath so that I can feel the difference between my pelvic positions. Right now, I'm just resting. I don't know, I couldn't say I'm really in a tuck or a tilt or even in neutral. If I were to guess, I'm probably in more of a tuck, right? So let me really try and find a little more neutral here. So if I'm cueing somebody to go into a tuck, what I'm asking for is that they draw their belly button in towards their spine and they almost think about sending their tailbone up between their knees, almost up to the ceiling. So they feel that their low back is firmly imprinted on the mat or the floor, whatever is beneath them, right? So I'm feeling that my pelvis has kind of rotated more towards my chest or more towards the head side of my mat here. If I ask them to go into a tilt, I'm going to take my arms away, then that means that they're kind of reaching their pubic bone away from the head side of their mat, letting their tailbone get really heavy on the mat and feeling this lift of space in their low back. And this can look different in different people. All right, so let's go between these two. So tucking, and I think about a little puppy dog who's gotten scolded, how they kind of tuck their tail between their legs, right? So there's your tuck, and then the tilt is just the opposite. Bringing the tailbone down, feeling a little more pronounced lift of that low back off the mat, all right? So we can go between these two positions, tucking and tilting. And we want our spine to be able to do that. We want our pelvis to have this movement. This is healthy movement, all right? Our pelvis is designed to do this. This is functional movement in all sorts of activities we do, and we want to be able to have that range of motion between those two positions. But we also want to be able to maintain a neutral pelvis. And a neutral pelvis is defined as the pubic bone and those two front hip bones being on the same horizontal or vertical plane. So if you would take your heels of your hands onto those front hip bones and place your fingertips onto your pubic bone, you could even peek up a little bit and do a little tucking and a little tilting. And you want to get to a point where the heel of your hands and your fingertips are on the same horizontal plane. And for some of us, that might actually feel like we're in more of a tilt, but you are in a neutral pelvis. So you might feel a distinct lift in your low back, but it shouldn't be a pronounced lift. It shouldn't feel extreme. Depending on your body composition, it might feel more extreme. So the trick here is engaging our core, or our abs, our abdominals, maintaining this neutral pelvis. And it also almost feels like you kind of let your abdominals go. And this is where we have to activate our abdominals just by squeezing everything in. There's nothing anymore that you can do other than just kind of drawing everything in, tightening everything up. And this is what we often refer to as a corseting effect, or a sense of having a really wide belt around your not even your midsection, but your lower torso there. So you can let that go. And then use your exhale to activate that corseting feeling around your midsection. And we want our mid-ribs to remain heavy, so watch that when you're in neutral that you don't pop and lift those mid-ribs, but they stay connected. And to practice that core engagement and to practice keeping your pelvis in that neutral position, you can just activate that core and just practice lifting one leg and letting it come down. Notice I'm keeping my hands on my ribs just to remind me not to let my ribs pop and lift. And I'm not going fast through this, right? I'm really working on maintaining that neutral pelvis. I could even put my hands back on my pelvis just to remind myself where that neutral pelvis is, and lift and lower the legs. And I'm feeling more core activation, keeping my pelvis in a neutral position. It's different than feeling the core work when we do chest lifts or ab work, where we're coming up into flexion of the upper body, of the upper torso. But it's very valuable to know how to keep that core engaged in that neutral pelvis position, because this is also a healthy, stabilized position for the spine. All right, so just to review, a tuck is when you feel your tailbone kind of slide up through the center of your legs between your knees. And then the tilt is when you feel your tailbone get heavy, that low back will lift. Maybe the ribs come with you, that's okay. And then neutral is when the hip bones and your pubic bone are on that same horizontal plane. You can always peek up and check in with that. But when you're working in that neutral, it's super important to keep that corseting engagement of your midsection in play so that your spine is stable. So when you're in a Pilates class, you are going to hear that cueing of tucking and tilting and probably finding neutral. So play with that. Know how to find that in your own body. It's going to look different for everyone. Some people don't have as much range of motion in their pelvis as others. Some people are hypermobile and can just, go on for days. But there are exercises we do where we want to encourage all those ranges of motion. And if you have the ability, if you don't have any restrictions in your lumbar spine, then you should be endeavoring to work in all of those ranges of motion, because it's good, healthy, nourishing movement. I hope that helped. I hope that clears up some things so that the next time you're in class and you are cued to find a tucky butt or a tilt or a neutral, you'll know how to get there quickly and get going. See you soon. Have a great day.